The 12th of March, 1938. German troops cross the border with Austria and invade the country without firing a single shot. They are not met with armed resistance, but with cheers and flowers. While thousands of Austrians turn out to greet Adolf Hitler as he travels first to Linz and then on to Vienna, terrified Jews, leftists, and other opponents of the Nazi regime race towards the country's borders, hoping to reach them before they are closed, but most would become trapped in a rapidly Nazifying Austria. In the weeks that follow, there is pogrom-like violence across the country. Austrian Nazis and others beat up, attack, and humiliate the Jews. They force them to scrub the streets, clean public toilets, and perform humiliating exercises. In August 1940, Hitler appoints Baldur von Schirach as a new Reich governor and Nazi party Gauleiter in Vienna, who together with his wife steal public money and the property of Jews. His wife's name is Henriette von Schirach. Henriette von Schirach was born as Henriette Hoffmann on the 2nd of February 1913 in Munich, then part of the German Empire. Her father, Heinrich Hoffmann, was a photographer, and her mother Therese Baumann was a former singer and actress who died a sudden and unexpected death in 1928, when Henriette was only 15 years old. In 1919, Henriette's father Heinrich met Adolf Hitler, and in April the following year, he joined the Nazi Party. In 1921, Hitler took control of the party, and 2 years later, he named Hoffmann his official photographer. No other photographer but Hoffmann was allowed to take pictures of him. Hoffmann tried to portray Hitler as the epitome of the German people, which was difficult because the future Führer lacked the racial profile of the Nordic race. As a result, Hoffmann tried to portray Hitler in the best light by focusing more on his eyes, which many found dreamy and hypnotic. Henriette was 8 or 9 years old when she first met Hitler, who frequently came to Hoffmann's Munich house for dinner. Hitler may have made a pass at her when she was 17. She later recalled, "I was only 17 and he was 40. Finally, to my great surprise, he asked me with a very serious air, 'Will you kiss me?' I said no. He turned round and went out, closing the door behind him. When my father returned to the house, I told him of the incident. He laughed in my face and declared, 'You're imagining things, you silly goose.'" As the personal photographer of Adolf Hitler, Henriette's father Heinrich made millions selling images of Hitler. His photographs of Hitler were published as postage stamps, postcards, posters, and picture books. In 1943, at their peak, Hoffmann's companies employed 300 employees and had a turnover of 58 million Reichsmarks, an equivalent of almost 550 million United States dollars today. In 1930, alongside her studies at the University of Munich, Henriette Hoffmann worked as Hitler's secretary. She got to know powerful people in the Nazi Party, as well as Hitler's niece, Galli Raubal, who presumably committed suicide in 1931, and her father's former apprentice, Eva Braun, who later became Hitler's wife and committed suicide as well. In 1931, Henriette met Baldur von Schirach, the leader of the Nazi Student League and the youngest of Hitler's entourage. The couple married on the 31st of March, 1932 in Munich, with Adolf Hitler and Ernst Röhm, the leader of the SA, as witnesses. The reception took place in Hitler's private apartment, and Henriette's wealthy father paid for them to move into a luxurious apartment in Munich. Between 1933 and 1942, Henriette gave birth to 4 children: Angelica Benedicta, Klaus, Robert, and Richard. After her marriage, Henriette von Schirach became a member of the Nazi Party, but she did not hold a position in the party apparatus. Baldur von Schirach, together with his father-in-law, produced several propaganda books which sold hundreds of thousands of copies, earning Schirach and Hoffmann substantial royalties. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party came into power in January 1933. On the 17th of June the same year, Baldur von Schirach was named the youth leader of the German Reich, with responsibility for all youth organizations in the nation. He would appear frequently at rallies together with Hitler, arousing the Hitler Youth audience. The largest gathering usually took place annually at Nuremberg, where Hitler Youth members from all over Germany would converge for the annual Nazi Party rally. Since the Hitler Youth and its female section, the League of German Girls, were considered fully Aryan organizations by Nazi officials, premarital sex was encouraged in their ranks. At the 1936 Nuremberg rally, where there were some 100,000 participants of youth organizations present, 900 girls between the ages of 15 and 18 returned home pregnant. Both organizations, the Hitler Youth and the League of German Girls, were led by Baldur von Schirach and became the primary tools that the Nazis used to indoctrinate young people with Nazi ideology, thus shaping the beliefs, thinking, and actions of the German youth. Henriette identified herself with the goals of her husband and the Nazi Party. In March 1936, the Schirachs purchased Castle Aspenstein in Kochel am See, which they soon renovated. The Second World War began on the 1st of September 1939, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland. On the 8th of August 1940, Baldur von Schirach became Reich Governor and Nazi Party Gauleiter in Vienna, Austria. In the position of Vienna's district leader, which he retained until the end of the war in 1945, Schirach was responsible for the deportation of the Viennese Jews, which he described in a speech on the 14th of September 1942, saying, "If you wanted to reproach me that I am deporting tens of thousands of Jews from this city to the Eastern Ghetto, I have to answer, I see it as an active contribution to European culture." During Schirach's tenure, 65,000 Jews were deported to concentration camps. Schirach moved to Vienna together with his family, and Henriette was delighted with the move. The Schirachs continued to live luxuriously, and they had no qualms about stealing public money and the property of Jews. Their house was decorated with furniture, artworks, rugs, and tapestries stolen from Jews. The house in which they lived had belonged to a Jew who had fled the country. One stolen painting by Lukas Cranach the Elder was bought by Schirach with special permission from Hitler for 30,000 Reichsmarks. Another painting by Peter Bröchel the Younger was stolen from Jews who were deported to the Theresienstadt ghetto, where they died. It was purchased by Schirach for 24,000 Reichsmarks, again with permission from Hitler. In all, the Schirachs bought paintings for hundreds of thousands of Reichsmarks, selling most of them for a profit. In 1943, Henriette von Schirach was invited to the occupied Netherlands by friends in the German occupation forces. She later claimed, "I heard screams outside the hotel late at night, so went out to investigate. I saw Jewish women and children being bundled into transportation to be deported. I then asked a German soldier what they were doing, to which he replied, 'What Hitler is doing in Holland is wrong. We have turned the friendly Dutchmen into bitter enemies, which is a big mistake. Make sure you tell him this the next time you visit the Berghof.' And she did. Henriette broke off her visit to the Netherlands and telephoned the Berghof, which was Hitler's mountain residence on the Obersalzberg in the mountains of Bavaria, to make an appointment with Hitler. Years later, Henriette explained what had happened. "So I told him what I had seen. Hitler's reply was, 'You are sentimental.' He stood up. I stood up and said, 'Herr Hitler, you ought not to be doing that.' I thought I could allow myself to say so because I had known him for so long. I have hurt him deeply. What's more, in front of other men who were there. Then Hitler said, 'You're sentimental. In what way do the Jewesses in Holland concern you? This is nothing but sentimentality. Humanitarian nonsense. Every day, 10,000 of my best soldiers die on the battlefield, while the others carry on living in the camps. That means the biological balance in Europe is not right anymore.' Henriette turned away, letting him shout, and then ran down the staircase separating the big room from the hall. Henriette and her husband Baldur were never invited again. After the incident, propaganda minister Josef Goebbels noted in his diary in 1943 that the Schirachs had only discovered their compassion after almost 60,000 Jews had been deported from their doorstep, so to speak. On the 16th of July 1944, Schirach's mother Emma had burned to death when a plane crashed into her house in Wiesbaden, and she attempted to rescue her dog. Schirach then became notoriously anxious about Allied air raids and sent his children away to their castle Aspenstein, followed by Henriette in late autumn 1944. Their art collection was shipped separately. On the 2nd of April 1945, Vienna came under attack by the Red Army, which by the 9th of April was approaching the city center. On that day, Schirach broadcast a final call for citizens to fight to the last man. However, Baldur himself did not fight, but instead departed his headquarters, and then fled westward with the 6th Panzer Army towards Tyrol, where on the 2nd of May he discarded his uniform and went underground under the assumed name of Richard Falk in the Austrian town of Schwaz. On the 5th of June, von Schirach unexpectedly, as he was officially considered dead, revealed his true identity and surrendered to the American town commandant, and was arrested by the 103rd Counterintelligence Corps. Schirach was then tried at the Nuremberg trials, which were held against representatives of the defeated Nazi Germany. At the trial, Baldur von Schirach was one of the only few defendants to denounce Hitler. He was sentenced to 20 years in Spandau Prison in Berlin. The life full of luxury and privilege also ended for Henriette and her children. Their castle Aspenstein was confiscated in 1946, and according to her memoirs, Henriette von Schirach was imprisoned by the US Army for more than a year and was given the daily task of cleaning the prison's toilets. To do so, she was handed Hitler Youth flags by the prison guards. She recalled being mistreated and held in contempt by the white American guards, and that it was only the black soldiers who were decent to her. Her father, Heinrich Hoffmann, was also arrested and imprisoned, so that the von Schirach children were left with no parents or grandparents to look after them. They were taken in for some time by farming families in southern Bavaria and attended local schools. In July 1949, Henriette von Schirach filed for divorce from her husband, who was still in prison. The divorce was finalized the following year, and she sent Baldur a damning letter in which she also wrote, "Have you at any time, instead of sitting in your cell studying philosophy, Latin, French, writing poetry, and thinking how to straighten out your position in history, as you call it, actually faced reality, and wondered where the next meal was coming from for your wife and children?" Nevertheless, in 1958, she traveled to London to lobby for a reduction of his prison sentence. She described her former husband as in no way a criminal, but an idealist, and much too good for politics. The journey, however, was unsuccessful, and Baldur von Schirach was released from prison on the 30th of September, 1966, after serving his full sentence. He was blind in one eye and suffering from thrombosis. In the meantime, Henriette decided to get her former life, filled with money and privilege, back. In 1955, she bought back their former home, the castle Aspenstein, and after 10 months, she sold it for twice the purchasing price. Obtaining back her father's art collection was the next step. During the war, many artworks looted from persecuted Jewish collectors passed through Henriette's father, Heinrich Hoffmann. After the war, he was arrested and classified by the Allies' art-looting investigators to be a major offender in Nazi art plundering of Jews, as both art dealer and collector. He was called one of the greediest parasites of the Hitler Plague, and his art collection, which contained many artworks looted from Jews, was ordered confiscated by the Allies. Hoffmann, whose collection numbered 278 works, died in 1957, aged 72. Years after World War II, American officials entrusted more than 10,000 confiscated artworks to the Bavarian state to return them to their rightful owners, many of them Jews whose property had been plundered. Among them were 278 works which had been confiscated from Heinrich Hoffmann. Henriette von Schirach and her family pleaded with officials of the Bavarian state painting collections to turn over these works, including a small landscape named View of a Dutch Square, by the Dutch artist Jan van der Heyden, who is considered one of the leading architectural painters of the Dutch Golden Age. Before the war, the painting had been owned by Gottlieb and Mathilde Kraus, Jews who had fled their Vienna penthouse, leaving behind a carefully packed collection of art that was then confiscated by the Gestapo in 1941. Henriette von Schirach persuaded the Bavarians, who made no attempt to return the work to the Kraus family, to give it back to her for a pittance, 300 Deutschmarks, and 1 year later, Henriette sold it at an auction for 16,100 Deutschmarks, 50 times what she had paid for it. In the end, she managed to get back 118 objects of her father's collection by presenting sales records of them. Of those, 92 were simply given back to her, and 26 she bought back. Most of them she later resold, and in some cases with a large profit margin. Instead of returning the artworks to their rightful owners, it was being handed back to the families of Nazi war criminals, such as the von Schirachs. After divorcing Baldur von Schirach, Henriette once again married and divorced, and wrote 3 books. The Price of Glory in 1956, Anecdotes About Hitler in 1980, and Women Around Hitler in 1983. When she died on the 18th of January 1992, she was 78 years old. Later in her life, Henriette described Hitler as a cozy Austrian who wanted to make himself and others a little bit happy. An interesting opinion about a dictator who will forever be remembered as the man who orchestrated and implemented one of the worst crimes in history. Thanks for watching the World History channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.